Hello, and welcome to the Alabama Public Health Training Network. Thank you for joining us today for our program, Stronger Together, Managing Workplace Conflict and Confrontation. I'm Danita Rose, Employee Relations Officer and Civil Rights Coordinator at the Alabama Department of Public Health. If you have a question about anything being discussed today, please email them during our broadcast, and we will answer those questions later in the program. Before we get started, I would like to welcome our presenter today. Annalisa Stroop is a licensed professional counselor and owner at I Hope Counseling Center. She graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology and a Master's in Counselor Education at Mississippi State University. Annalisa has a passion to help empower individuals to begin a positive path to their own growth and well-being. For the past 28 years, she has worked with individuals and groups in various corporate, military training workshops, and mediations. She is a solution-focused therapist with a desire to assist individuals and couples uncover their true potential and lead them to a life worth celebrating. She has performed as a team member in many organizations, but branched out 9 years ago to develop her own practice, I Hope Counseling Center. Annalisa, thank you for being here today. I know you have a lot of great information to cover, so let's go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much, and I'm very excited to be here today with you. I would like to welcome you all. We've got a great topic to cover today. I often ask myself when the topics are presented to me, what is it that we're doing that further promotes the information that we get all throughout our time at work, our life. We've done a good job of trying to bring these topics into our workplaces, bring them into our homes. But I often ask myself, why are we still struggling? Why is this still an issue? Why is this a hard topic for people to take and implement into their workplace? And so some of the things that I came up with is we have to ask ourselves those hard questions. When we're dealing with people, do we have the skills that we need? Did we all learn those coping skills as we were growing up? What is our journey? How does it affect our interaction with other people? And on and on. So I've got a lot of questions that hopefully we will be able to answer today. And as we go through this, please feel free to put the questions in the chat. I will be glad to answer those as we go. I hope that you walk away here today with some skills that you'll not only be able to implement into your workplace, but in your home and in the community as well. So I'm here today as a provider of behavioral health system. Each one of you, I hope, knows that your employee assistance program is your free counseling program that's offered to you and your household dependents. Now, we will go through further information about your employee assistance program as we near the end of the program today. And of course, we are partnering, and again, we will go through that near the end. But as you see here, we have a lot of covered lives, and we are eager to partner with you as an individual, with your families, and as your just your workplace partner. So today, what are we going to look at? Of course, as the name says, we're going to look at workplace. How to deal with conflict, workplace conflict, how we deal with that in our workplaces, in our home, and in our community. What I find is a lot of times people want to avoid conflict. Now, sometimes the avoidance comes from our journey just through life. Maybe you didn't have the person that gave you the skills to work through conflict in a comfortable way. Maybe you had someone that told you conflict was wrong. Maybe you had someone that told you that or just acted out conflict in a way that you never wanted to be involved with that again. So a lot of times we do try to avoid conflict. With what you're going to find out today is that does make the conflict even worse. We're going to look at the different types of conflict, constructive versus destructive, and how those are very different, and how we want to use one versus the other. And then hopefully you'll leave here today with tools that will give you a little more courage, a little more confidence to take these skills into your workplace, take these skills into your home and in your community. And as I said, we will go over your employee assistant resources at the end of our time. So just a little stats, because it helps to see how conflict affects our workplace. So if I could ask each one of you what causes the most stress in your workplace, as we see here, 34% of this population says that it comes from workplace conflict. What are we walking into every day? Who are the people that we just really don't want to deal with? What are the conflicts we've already encountered in our workplace, and how did those get worked out? How were they not resolved? And then we see that a lot of conflict is because of heavy workloads. We have people coming in and out of our workplaces. We oftentimes are left with not enough key players, and sometimes that causes conflicts because we don't have enough people in our workplace. And then we also have attacks between personal issues that we have that rise up, and these make it very difficult for people, for all of us, to want to come into work every day. We spend an incredible amount of time in our workplace. A lot of us spend more time at work than we do at home. And so what I hope that we leave here today with is some skills to be able to make our workplaces a little more pleasant. Now, I am not telling you that you're going to be able to change the people in your workplace. I can already hear you. Well, you don't know the people that I work with. I don't. But I've been in enough jobs and companies and worked with enough people to know that I understand there are people in our workplace, sometimes that's us, and it makes it difficult to be able to address conflict. And we certainly don't want to, as you see that 25% there of employees encounter sicknesses. I want you to remember today, as we're walking through this presentation, that when we live in that chronic state of stress, it not only causes, of course, issues in our workplace, but stress directly impacts us physically. So your mind and body are connected. So when we don't deal with stress, and some stress is good. I do not want to give that information out today that you are supposed to have a life that's free of stress. Some stress is good. Some stress is why we got up and we all came to work this morning. Some stress is why we don't speed down the highway, because we don't want a ticket. But chronic stress that's undealt with, a day in and day out experience, is where we have problems that does lower our immune system. It causes us to be absent from work. And so I want you to, maybe if that's the only reason why you leave here today and say, you know, I do need to deal with the issues at work, is because I want to be the best version of me, the healthiest version of me. Now, my motto this year has been, I want to be the best version of me at work, at home, in my community, and one way of doing that is I'm going to have to deal with issues. Conflict is a part of our life. There is no avoiding it. It doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong, or vice versa. It just means that we're people. And one of my favorite sayings has been over the past few years, where you have people, you have problems. And so it's a given that we're going to have issues. If I could hear all of your responses right now, you'd say that you have issues at home. Maybe your workplace is worse than your issues at home, or vice versa. But either way, I want you to be able to leave here with the confidence knowing that addressing conflict is the healthy way, and you can have the confidence with some basic skills. And then lastly, you see here that employees, a lot of projects fail. Simply because we're not there, we don't have the mental space. We've used up all of our mental energy dealing, or really not dealing, with the conflicts in our workplace. So overall, you can see that conflict in any of our world, any environments that we are in and out of, is not going to fare well if we want to be the best version of ourselves. And we owe it to ourselves. You know, we think a lot of times, well, I want to be the best version of me so that I can have a better workplace. So I can be a better employee. I want to be the best version of me so my life experience is better. I did a training a couple of days ago, and I said every day that we get up, we get to be Eeyore or we get to be Tigger. Now, I have been Eeyore, and for those of you that are way too young and maybe you don't know anything much about Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore he kind of was the victim all of his life, and he was a ho-hum, and he did feel a little sorry for himself, and he just got caught up in the drama and couldn't seem to move out of it. Then there's Tigger, and he bounces around. Now, Tigger does not act like life does not happen. Tigger knows life happens, but Tigger chooses to bounce back. The actual presentation was on resilience. And so Tigger had that bounce back mentality. He never said that life didn't happen. He never acted like difficulties don't occur. He chose to bounce back. So I've been Tigger and I've been Eeyore. I will tell you today that I prefer to be Tigger. It is a better version of me. It feels better. I'm happier. I'm more full of joy. I don't ignore problems. I don't act like difficulties don't happen. I just choose to have a different mindset. And that's one of the things I want you to think about as we go through today. Your mindset is going to have everything to do with how you deal with or how you don't deal with conflict. So how do we handle conflict? How do we harness it? So we think about a harness as you put a harness on a horse. A harness leads the horse. And so when we think about the harnessing power, when you have a harness on a horse, you have the power over that horse. Why don't we look at power, there being power in disagreement? Well, disagreement is part of this world. It is part of our lives. It's part of our families. And when we act like disagreement doesn't exist, it really brings us into more conflict. And so if you look at a disagreement, some conflict as an actual positive, remember that mindset is where we're going to focus. It gives you that confidence to deal with it in a more effective way because you know that good things come from disagreements. Some of the best accomplishments happen through disagreements historically. And so I want you to take the fear away from disagreement. Everybody that's on this presentation, whether you're in a remote department somewhere or you're sitting right here in the audience, every one of us have different ideas, experiences, journeys. And if we got the right topic and began to discuss it, we would probably disagree. There should not be any fear in disagreement. There should be power in it because my experiences and my journey limit me. Your experiences and your journey limits you. But when we put both of those together, then we come up with new ideas. We come up with creativity. We come up with power. And so as you see that first line there, it says disagreement can actually be a catalyst to changing the way you think. I believe the reason why we're still having these discussions, y'all remember we got in disagreements on the playground. I can still see the particular people that I got in conflict with. Now, when I was a school-aged kid, I wanted that person to think exactly the way I did. And I thought they were wrong. If I thought I was right, then they were wrong. And I believe we have a lot of adults in our workplaces that still have that mentality that everything I think is right. Every thought that crosses my mental loop is the truth. I'm going to give you some bad news today. A lot of what you think is not true. I hate to say that. No, I like to say that because if you can hold on to that one thought, then you've conquered most of this whole conflict issue. I can't always base every thought that crosses my mind as true. And then I do not need to say then, you need to think the way I do. I need to open my mind up to say that, hey, you have different experiences, and your experiences are true for you and can alter the way I think and create open doors and different avenues. It changes your entire approach. So whenever I find myself closed-minded, I know that I'm in trouble. If I look at the people in my environment, and this is hard because we have emotions that come with this, our emotions from those thoughts. Everything you do starts with a thought. So if I think, well, you need to think the way I do, and you don't, then that's going to cause some negative emotions. And that surge of emotion is then what causes me to act in a way that's probably not very becoming, or it may not be very appropriate or professional. And so I have to remind myself, if I'm in that place where I believe that my way is the only way, I'm already in trouble. And I've closed my mind off to other people. Y'all, there are billions of people in this world. How self-centered and really arrogant and ignorant is it if I believe I'm the only one that has the right way of thinking? There's no way. And so that first line is where you really want to kind of connect yourself and begin to mold mindset, because once you've allowed yourself to open your mind up and say, you know what? There are other approaches other than mine. There are other ways of thinking other than mine. Then you've won half the battle. Now the next challenge is we need to listen well. I have found in doing this for almost 30 years now that most people do not know how to listen. Now we know how to talk, and we know how to overtalk you, and we know how to interrupt. But we don't know how to listen. We listen to respond. We very seldom listen to hear. I work with a lot of married couples, and this is one of the largest problems that presents itself, is we're not listening to each other. And so we miss very key parts, and we get defensive because that other person's saying something we don't agree with, or we didn't think about, or maybe it's something that's a little critical to us. But when you listen to hear, you will hear that it's not about you. So on that second statement there, listen well, the way you're going to do that is you have to stop personalizing everything to you. Don't personalize everything that someone does. It's very seldom about you, but we make everything about us. We are pretty self-centered by nature. So to be able to hear you, I need to stop personalizing. I need to stop taking everything so personal and open my mind up to it may not all be about me. When I stop making things personal and I pull myself aside, then I can actually hear what your needs are. When I listen to hear, I do hear what you are needing out of the situation. Now, what I should be able to do at that point is I should be able to regurgitate what you're actually needing. I should be able to regurgitate what you're actually saying. I should say, I hear that you're needing me to do X, Y, and Z. I hear that this bothers you when I do that. I hear that you're needing me to just listen. And so if we are listening to hear instead of listening to respond, we're going to get the other key part besides ourselves, and then we'll be able to move into harnessing the disagreement. But so many times we are waiting to respond. We're waiting on that other person to take that next breath. We may not even let them take a breath before we interject, and we miss all those key components. Practice this at home. If you have young children, I have 5 adult kids. I still call them kids because they're my kids. And I did not know that adulting or adult children are way worse than my little kids that I thought were just going to drive me up the wall. I have found, though, that they are desperate for me to listen to them. Now that means I probably need to put down my cell phone. That means I need to focus, and we have a world full of distractions. That means I need to give them my ear, and they feel respected when I do that. When somebody has listened to me, I feel respected by them. I feel valued by them. And so if you're somebody that has adult children, listen to them. They may not be saying all the right things, but be less likely to jump in there and correct, and more likely to just listen to what they have to say, and they will make better decisions. My sons are the worst at this. They will come to me and I will listen to them, and they have ideas that I want to say immediately, no, that will not work. But I've learned to be the okay mom. And just about every time they figure out on their own, that's not a good idea. And they'll come back and say, Mama, I didn't do that. That wasn't a good idea. And in my mind, I'm going, oh, thank you. No, that wasn't a good idea. But I would have never been able to give them that very basic respect had I just not listened. And so I spent a lot of time on listening, as you can tell, because that is vital if we want to harness the power of disagreements. So practice with people. It does take practice. Y'all, we were not given these skills as children. We were given a lot of dysfunctional skills. Why? Because we had people that weren't given those skills either. And so learn to listen and practice at this, because it does take practice. It's pretty evident you'll bounce back into old behavior, but when you learn how to listen to hear and listen to understand rather than listen to respond, you're going to see that this whole conflict situation goes a lot more smoothly. When you understand through trainings like this, then you see that a lot of disagreement had nothing to do with you. I watched a video years ago, and it was a setting in a hospital. And all through the hospital, people were walking around. And little bubbles appeared over their heads, and this bubble said this lady had just lost her spouse. This bubble said this person had just gotten into a horrible argument with their child. This bubble over this person said they had just gotten a diagnosis that was potentially life-ending. So all over these people's heads were bubbles of life. I cannot tell you how many times I've done mediations, and just the very most simple behavior of, well, Joan didn't speak to me this morning. And that's what started the disagreement. But what Larry didn't ask Joan is, Joan, what was the information you got this morning? Did you have a horrible disagreement with your husband? Did you have a child that didn't come in last night? Did you have a child that got into an accident? We don't know all the things that people are experiencing, but we will take very minor behaviors and make them about us. And those very little seeds of disagreement or misunderstandings cause huge conflict at home, in our workplace. And so be very careful to understand and utilize the skills to know that we're in a world with a lot of people. Chances are there are going to be things that you're going to misunderstand. And if you will just listen to hear those things, the conflict will work itself out very quickly. So we want to take I want everybody to take what they are learning here today and tell other people. Maybe there are people in your workplace that are not on the live, that are not sitting here today. Take these skills and teach them to the people in your workplace. Take them and teach them to your kids. Even though you may have adult kids like I do, we can still help each other and give each other good information that will help them in their lifetime. I often have parents that come into my office and say, well, we never fought in front of our kids. And my everyday response is, then how do they learn how to deal with conflict in their lives? So conflict is not bad. It's how we recover. It's how we resolve that makes the difference. And then this, as I said earlier, this creates some room for accountability. Now, if I know that my mindset is important, I need to listen, and I might misunderstand someone else's behaviors or even moments that they have, then I take accountability for me. I'm not always out there saying, you're the problem or you're the problem. I have to take accountability for me. If you find yourself as being the victim and everybody else is the problem, you might want to look in the mirror because you're a large part of the problem. Nobody gets out of this world as being problematic. Some days I am the Eeyore, but I prefer being Tigger. Tigger takes accountability. Tigger doesn't ignore things, but he knows that if he takes accountability, he will bounce back from these conflicts in our lives, and they're not going away. Now, there are a lot of different types here, as you see. In our workplace, there's interdependence conflict, which just means we are in these workplaces where your part affects this part, my part affects both of these parts, and so we are working as independent, but we all have a dependence on each other. So as you already know, that can cause some conflict because not everybody is putting their part in. And this one is a hard one because we all come with different styles, we come from different backgrounds, we come from different journeys, and my journey doesn't look like yours. And maybe my work ethic wasn't instilled in me. And so I may appear to be that person that's lazy or doesn't care or all the number of things. I know I will be talking about generations in the workplace. This right here is a large part of conflict when it comes from the different styles of generations in the thought processes. So interdependent conflict is an issue. Then we have leadership conflict. We have leadership conflict in all the different types of leadership styles. We have leadership as, our leader then giving information to employees. That sometimes causes problems in how we communicate with each other. I will tell you how you're communicating with each other, it causes a lot of problems. If you've never studied any type of, I know personality conflict is one on here, but if you've never done any studying on what your personality type is and how it interacts with other personalities, please do that, because we do not often understand the journeys that each of us have come from in our lifetime. And if I'm a leader and I'm speaking to someone in a way that maybe some abusive situation in my employee's life happen for them, then we don't understand how we are causing a lot of tension there. And so I need to understand, not only need to understand the people that are working with me, but I need to understand how I am perceived. And so that causes a lot of conflict. Our working styles, again, we come from different personalities, we come from different journeys. My working style, that's a problem, again, within our generations. That causes a lot of conflict. Personality differences cause a lot of conflict. And then we all have different backgrounds. And so one of the things I can tell you just in looking at this list is get to know the people that you work with. Don't be that person that just stands off and says, I'm just here for a paycheck, I don't want to get to know anybody. You are going to be a walking conflict if that's the way, if that's your mindset. I can't really adjust or understand if I don't get to know the people that I work with. And I'm not talking about being unprofessional. I don't call workplaces families because there are too many blurred lines and lack of boundaries in our families. So I don't see my workplace as a family, but I do need to get to know the people that I work with. I will know about people's lives because they feel more valued when I understand things that are going on in their life. And I don't judge people or have expectations that are not realistic when I understand people. And it limits the conflict if I just get to know people. And so those are just a few of the types of conflict that we have in our workplace. And a lot of those can be applied over into our home life as well. Now, here's our favorite part. How do we deal with difficult people? Now, if I had a show of hand and I'd say, how many of y'all have dealt with difficult people, I'm sure everybody would raise their hand. But what if I ask you how many of you have been the difficult person? I bet I wouldn't get as many hands, but you know. And you've probably had people tell you different things. And so here's just some behaviors that we exhibit when we are a little more difficult to deal with. So a lot of these you have worked in. Some of these you may have been that difficult person. I will tell you, sometimes when I'm feeling a little stressed, I can be avoidant. Sometimes if I am stressed, maybe I'm approaching burnout, or maybe I'm not dealing with stress well, or issues have cropped up. I'm being Eeyore. I might come across as a little rude. I might be a poor listener, because I'm thinking I just can't hear anything else. So I'm in a place where I am showing or exhibiting these behaviors to other people. I need to be able to get the feedback that, hey, Annalise, you've been a little frustrated lately, or you really haven't been very attentive. Now, when I become the person that can't hear that feedback, I'm that difficult person. I'm that person that says, I am not going to be part of the solution. I'm going to be part of the problem. So whether you're here today and you are experiencing that person that is exhibiting some of these behaviors, or you are that person that is difficult to deal with, allow people to give you that feedback. It kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. When I am not open for feedback, I'm a problem. We very seldom see ourselves the way other people see us. I will never forget, and I'm so appreciative of this coworker years ago. I was Eeyore. I was in a very difficult time of my life. I had every right to be Eeyore. I didn't have the luxury to stay there like I chose to. But she approached me one day and she said, I'm sorry, I need to set a boundary and set some distance between you and me. Now, you have to know something about me. I pride myself being Tigger. I have some delusion that I stay Tigger. I'm not always Tigger. I'm a lot of Eeyore. And so when she approached me and she said, you're so negative, and it's really affecting me, and because we worked very closely together. And she said, so I have to put some distance between you and me. I'm still in this delusion that I'm Tigger all the time. And it did rub me the wrong way. It upset me. I didn't act out. I didn't speak foully to her. I was very openly upset. And I walked away from her with the mindset of, who does she think she is? I know she didn't just tell me that, and I wanted to take her inventory and tear her down. I didn't, thank goodness. But I took it, if you are somebody that's struggling with being that difficult person or getting along with others, feedback from others is so valuable. It will not feel good. It will not initially even appear as if they're right. But what I would challenge you to do is what I did. I took it and I call it chewing on it. I chewed on it a little bit. It hurt my feelings. It made me mad. I did distance myself, not because she asked me to, because I was mad. And so I took it, and when I chewed on it for a little while, I had to be honest with myself. She was right. I was raised by a very negative mother, and if you knew all of her history, you would understand why she was negative. But I was now in a position in my life where I had some very tragic things going on, and I'd morphed into my Eeyore lifestyle, and it was very hard for other people to deal with. But she did me a favor that day. She changed my life, actually. And a year after she did this, she had already left. She didn't leave because of me. I did start acting right eventually. But after she said that, I went back to her. I said, you changed my life, and I will be forever in your debt. Because I have to still fight that negativity. It's my nature. And I'll be honest with you, we're created by nature to be very negative people. Boy, we will find the negative in things. For instance, my husband had to go downtown. I'm from Birmingham, and he had to go downtown today. Well, if you've ever driven in Birmingham traffic down 280, it will test everything about you and your good nature. And so he works from home, so that's something he doesn't have to do often. But he called me, and I'm trying to get ready to come down here. He called me. Do you believe where I am? I'm only at so-and-so. And I was like, oh, boy, here we go. Every time you do this, honey, every time you tell me you're in a foul mood because of the traffic. What did you expect? Did you think it was going to be different? And then I said, hey, let me call you back. I'm trying to get in the car. Okay. And so when I got in the car, I said, I hear Birmingham traffic, still Birmingham traffic. But hey, you could be grateful today because you don't have to drive that every day. There are people that have to drive it every day. And so what I've learned is, yes, every single moment of the day, pretty much, we have something to complain about. We have something to do all these things on this list. But if we focus ourselves to be more like Tigger, to be more positive, to be more healthy in our thinking, we will be less likely to be those difficult people. We'll also be less likely to react to difficult people and meet their actions. You ever had those people say, hey, I'll meet you right, and then before you know it, you've both exploded. We don't want to be that person that meets difficult people with difficulty. We want to be full and joyful enough to be able to approach them in a way that we don't add to the problem. And that's going to be more of that Tigger mentality. And so one of the ways that I would say to deal with difficult people the best is fill yourself up with gratitude. Difficult people will detract from you if you let them. If you're empty, you're going to meet them with difficulty. If you are full, and gratitude is one of my favorite ways to fill myself back up, you will meet them with a resolve. You'll meet them with more patience. You will meet them with a little more grace. And so as we walk through this, one of the ways to be able to be appropriate to deal with conflicts is you've got to have good self-care. You have got to fill yourself back up. Life is going to deplete you every day. You will have a reason to be empty every day. But it is your responsibility to fill back up. And that looks different for us all. And so make sure you're doing the things that fill you. And so how do we deal with those difficult people? We listen. Listen is always at the top of the list. Don't take it personally. It's very seldom about you. As I just said, don't meet them where they are and reciprocate those negative feelings. But if you are in that Eeyore stage, you're going to match them in their negativity. Practice remaining calm. This is something that takes practice. I shared in one of the last trainings that I did. I have this Annalisa back here, and I have the front-facing Annalisa. Now, I call this Annalisa the Godfather. He's always back there. He talks to me in that deep voice. He's trying to keep me calm because the front-facing me will match negative energy. And so he keeps me grounded. And so I practice when I have a situation where I know it has potential to go left, as we say. I click him on and I start listening. And he's telling me, Annalisa, it's okay. You can listen. You don't have to match their negative energy. Listen to what their need is. I do this with couples all the time. Do you hear through what they're saying or how they're behaving? Do you hear what their need is? And if you have a hard time with that, say, I see that you're upset. What do you need from me? But we very seldom want to do that because we personalize it all and we make it about us, and then we're going to respond with that negative emotion. So remaining calm is going to require you to have a conversation back here so that the front-facing you can present very differently. Again, don't personalize. Let them have their own thoughts and feelings. Search for that hidden meaning. Now, I'm not telling you to dismiss someone's thoughts or feelings. That is the worst thing to do. You can actually say, I hear that you are feeling this way. Have you thought about this? I wonder what you're thinking when that happens. So you begin to ask questions. If you want to de-escalate, particularly yourself, begin to ask questions and pull yourself out of that negative space. The right questions de-escalates the worst problems. And so learn to do this. Practice with one another. Practice at home, because we do not do this by nature. We are going to be up there at that top right. We're going to reciprocate with negative feelings. Nothing good comes from that. It seems like the whole world has planted themselves right there. We're going to pop off with that negativity. I'm going to match you with your same negative energy, and nothing gets done. Oftentimes worse things happen because of that. So learn to ask those questions, listen well, and then find out what that other person really is saying and what they're needing. So why do we not need to avoid conflict? Well, because it doesn't accomplish anything. It often has a snowball effect. When we avoid a conflict, lots of negative behaviors rise up, and especially in the workplace. When we avoid it, here's what people, most of the time that I find that people do. I'm going to avoid the person that I'm upset with, and I'm going to go talk about them to everybody else. Well, then what we've done is not only now we have a conflict with them, but we've gotten our allies over here, and guess what? They've got their allies. Now we've got the whole workplace upset. It is not fair to involve everybody else. Don't be that workplace gossip either. Don't find out about, because these are key players too. Well, I heard that Jessica was mad at Sally, and did you hear what Sally said to Jessica? And then we get the whole workplace upset. We don't want to create a hostile work environment. Don't be that person. I hear this all the time. Well, if you don't have anything good to say, come sit next to me. Don't be that person, because you cause more problems in the workplace. And remember, from the very beginning of our presentation today, we want a workplace that is good to come to. We're here too long to be miserable. We're here too long to sit in conflict, but we're here too long to be the one that instigates it. And I'm sure if I ask every one of you today, you could tell me the person that's the instigator in your workplace. And maybe that's you. Don't be that person that's miserable and you love everybody else to be miserable too. Get some help with that. Call your EAP. Find out what's wrong with you, that you are trying to light fires everywhere with everybody and keep the whole place miserable. And if you have somebody that you work with that's like that, you can approach them, all in how you do it, but say, hey, that's not going to help things by spreading rumors or talking about the conflict. Let's find a way to resolve it. But people often do this avoidant thing because they're just scared. They may have a journey in their past that conflict was never good. They may have a journey that led them through a lot of abuse. These are very vital things to get to know about people, because then we understand maybe why they do what they do and how we need to interact with them. Maybe a conflict never turned out well for them and it was just a very terrible situation. And so we have to understand that not all conflict is how it used to be. We can learn how to deal with it, and that avoiding it oftentimes makes it worse. So, as I said, the first thing I did when my friend confronted me, I wanted to withdraw. I had made it in my mind, set it in my mind, I'm not talking to her anymore. I don't like her. So I'm just going to do, okay, you don't want to talk to me, or I'm negative, okay, I'll just avoid you. It was a very immature way of responding, but I had been hurt. The truth, have you ever noticed that the truth does hurt? I found that a lot with myself, other people. And so that initial withdrawal is pretty common, but I want you to challenge yourself to bounce back. Jump in that Tigger mentality and bounce back and say, no, I'm not going to make this big declaration that I'm not going to talk to anybody anymore. I'm not going to make these big declarations that I've now got to go find another job. I'm going to bounce back and deal with this. then often we want to project. Well, it's not my fault, it's yours. And so we're always blame shifting, and we're the victim. If you find yourself the consistent victim, you're the problem, or you're a major part of the problem. So don't project onto other people. Be a part of the solution. As you heard in my bio, I'm a solutions-focused therapist. I am not often worried about peeling back all the layers. We have time. We have very short periods of time to work on things and to get people in a better direction. And so we go right to the problem, and we just uncover it and we deal with it. What is the solution to this problem? Not what happened 50 years ago, although some of that does come into play, but I am very quick to, here's the problem, what's the solution? And so withdrawing, blame shifting, that prevents that. And we make our workplace a lot more miserable. Making peace without addressing the issue, that's not real peace. What you've done is you've shoved it up under the rug, you've stuck your head in the sand, and it only grows. We never make peace without addressing the issue. And a lot of us were raised like that. A lot of us were raised in families where we didn't talk about anything. And you just acted like it didn't happen. And you give the person that was offended 2 or 3 days, and they came back like nothing ever happened. But you're like, wait a minute, I haven't dealt with this. And so you want to make sure that you deal with it and not just sweep it under the rug. And my favorite are those of us that are passive-aggressive. I'm sure if I had a show of hands, I'd have some passive-aggressive people here. That never accomplishes anything. It often worsens the situation. So be careful not to be that aggressive person with the little snide comments, the little underhanded meanings. It really does not do anything but make matters worse. And we certainly know that we don't need to be calling people names or insulting each other. You would be amazed when I walk into, or maybe you wouldn't be amazed, I walk into some of the workplaces that I do mediations in, and grown people, I have to tell them to stop calling each other names or stop insulting people. Let's focus on the issue, which has nothing to do with any of these other things. Now, a lot of times I see that it gets to these insults because lots of issues over time have been allowed to just go undealt with. And so we want to be very careful that we're not doing any of the things, because avoidance is not going to make the matter better. It often worsens it. Some of the consequences, now none of us are communicating. You remember what I said? I didn't want to talk to her now, and I was just going to ignore her. Well, that's not professional, it's not mature, and it's not going to lead to more positive interactions or a resolve. It's going to leave unmet needs. I'm going to leave needs on the table that I'm going to be resentful about, as you see on the next word there. Resentment comes from those unmet needs. I don't feel heard. I'm frustrated because I don't feel valued. When I don't deal with things, or when people don't deal with things, I no longer feel valued. I'm coming to work and I don't want to be there. Maybe Sunday evening I'm really getting anxious because I know all these consequences are now these unmet needs. People aren't talking. It just feels tense. And all of that makes for a very hostile work environment, if in the least just a really miserable place to be. I'm not building relationships. I'm diminishing them. I am causing myself to avoid and to not be productive. And remember what I told you, when we allow the mind and the body to get in a negative space, I begin to lower the immune system and I become very unwell. And so maybe now I'm not coming to work because I'm sick more often, or my coworkers are. And so that interdependence conflict continues to happen because now people aren't doing their part. And so, as you can see, the only thing that happens from avoiding conflict, nobody ever said it was fun, nobody ever said you had to like everybody, but it only increases conflict. As a matter of fact, I tell people all the time, you don't have to like the people you work with. You really don't. You just have to be respectful and professional, and we can do that. I don't have to like people to respect them. And so we want to be that person that brings about good change, not staying the same and causing more conflict. So here's some of the side-by-side comparisons. So a constructive way to deal with conflict means I'm going to talk openly and I'm going to be respectful. The other person is going to allow me to speak, and then I'm going to allow them to speak. A good, healthy conversation is like a tennis match. You just bounce it back. You don't sit there and just bounce your ball off the person's head. That's not going to be good. That's abusive. But a good, healthy conversation goes back and forth. A very destructive way of communicating, or destructive conflict tactic, is you just point fingers at everybody. It's everybody's fault but you. Have you ever heard that when you point the finger, you got three pointing back at you? So be careful not to be that finger pointer, because you are part of the problem. Everybody has different ideas. Everybody has an opinion. When we believe that the only person's opinion that matters is our own, again, we're the problem. And so that causes that incompatibility. We cannot come together and resolve anything. We can't accomplish things. We are very disjointed. We want to be able to come together and collaborate together. When we have that destructive way of dealing with conflict, we're all unfocused and we're me. When you're in that mindset, you are the problem. You're a huge part of the problem. Brainstorming happens when we're constructive. There is no control. I'm sure if I ask each one of you, ever been a part of a team that everybody was kind of out for themselves, there was no control in the meeting, it was just chaos. It's miserable. But that is happening in our work environments today. It's happening in our home. So we want to be able to come together and give our ideas, our opinions, understand that everybody else is entitled to their opinions, and then we collaborate together for one common good. And that allows us to be productive versus having those very unproductive meetings. And all of us have sat through those meetings. They are torturous. And so don't be a part of the problem and have that destructive conflict. Be somebody that is going to be that constructive view, that constructive mindset, that bounce back mentality, so that we can get on to do what we're here at our workplaces to do. So, remember what I told you. We've got to remain calm, and this is going to require practice. Here's the way you really hone into remaining calm. You've got to understand how your emotions impact you. So do a deep dive. There's tons of information out on the internet on emotional regulation, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. If you've never heard those words, look those up. Learn how your emotions impact you and how others impact you, and how we need to regulate in between those. So remaining calm is going to require you to be able to control your own thoughts and emotions. We're back to listening to, I told y'all that listening, I spent a lot of time there because that's a very key component of being able to manage conflict. Always focus on the positive. Even if there's 10 negatives, find something to focus on that is healthier, because it distracts our mind from wanting to just stay stuck in that negative place, which will not lead to good resolve. Be that person that states what your issue is. Let's not bring everything in the kitchen sink to the argument. Y'all know you've been there. You probably have been one of those people. We're going to dig up 20 years ago. That never accomplishes anything. All it does is it keeps us stuck in that rut of conflict. So whatever the issue is, you know, when you talked to me like that the other day, I didn't feel respected. Now I want you to notice something I did. I kept it on me. I didn't feel respected when you said what you said. Now, I am addressing that person's issue, but I made it about my thoughts and feelings. You're a terrible person. You do this all the time, and I don't like the way you do that. Well, we're going to be met with defensiveness, and it's not going to go anywhere quick. That's good. And so keep everything focused on you. You can tactfully address the issue, but state, I feel this way when you do that. And so be very tactful. Control those emotions, and I call those bullet point conversations. Attack the problem, not the person. We are not here to attack each other. And I don't even like to use the word attack. Confront. Confront the problem, not the person. And then avoid the game of blame, that blame shifting. We are not victims. We are confident people in our needs, in our responsibility. We're taking accountability for our behavior, but we do have interactions with each other that don't always go well. So make sure you're not blaming, you're just trying to resolve. I'm not going to play the blame game, I'm going to play the resolve game, and that does mean that we have issues with each other. It's very normal. Where you have people, you have problems. If we're going to focus on anything, the present is where we're going to stay, not the past. Remember what I told you earlier? Learn how to ask the right kind of questions. And if you're finding yourself going through this with, I don't have any of these skills, y'all, that's what your employee assistance program can help you and benefit you, that you can meet with a professional such as myself and we can practice these things. We can hone in on the skills that you do have and then sharpen up on or create the ones that you don't. And so if you're having trouble thinking about even doing or considering any of the things that we've talked about, find someone that will help you be able to bring these skills into your toolbox. Pick your battles. I am not somebody I don't want to waste my energy. And so I will often ask myself, Annalisa, and I talk to myself. I think it's the best conversation to have all day long. I'll say, Annalisa, now look, what are we going to gain from this? Is this really worth your energy and time? And a lot of times I'll say no. But there are a few times that I say, yes, it's absolutely worth your energy. And it's worth your energy to let them know. I'm so glad that that friend found that it was worth her energy because she changed me. And I'm very appreciative of that. And then we link offers. We come together with, this is my thoughts, these are my thoughts. Let's find some common ground. We're never going to be able to have it our own way all the time. And that wouldn't be a fun world anyway, because it'd be one-sided and we get bored. Everybody has their thoughts, their feelings, and we get to link those offers. Here's what I've come up with. Here's what I've come up with. And let's collaborate and come up with a good solution. Be creative. If I don't often hear other people's thoughts and opinions, I can't be creative. I'm stuck in my own little box. I need to think outside the box. And then here is probably the most important part on this slide here. Let's celebrate when we learn to come to an agreement. Let's celebrate when we have worked through a conflict. My husband and I, we do this. We're like, we recovered well. We got through that. Look at us. We did good. We didn't stay there like we usually do. Because y'all, learning how to agree to disagree and manage conflicts, that's a vital part of being more joyful, more peaceful, more like Tigger, being resilient. It is an important part of our lives in becoming the best version of ourselves. So celebrate those agreements. And celebrate that you are learning skills that you never had. So lastly, as a leader, I need to be able to assess the situation. If you are a leader, which we all are leaders, some have titles, some don't, but we should all be leaders in our community, in our workplaces, at home. Be that person that adds to the solution, not the problem. So assess the situation, but as a good parent, only step in when you're needed, when it's necessary. Don't jump in there. I work with parents all the time, unfortunately. They intervene too quickly, and what they do is they strip their child away from learning good lessons. A good lesson is how I've learned most of the things in my life. Were they all fun? No. But a good, hard-learned lesson will stick with you for the rest of your life. So only intervene when necessary. Let them build their skills. We can encourage that through trainings like this, but learn when to intervene. Do set those guidelines and boundaries for not only yourself, but the people you're working with. And then recognize in your workplace, what are the causes of conflict? Maybe ask the people you work around, what brings you stress? What do you see in the workplace that causes conflict? Ask questions, include everybody, because everybody has a different experience. And then work together to collaborate a resolve or collaborate a better environment. But everybody should be able to give their thoughts, their opinions, and their solutions so that they feel valued. We're back at that remaining neutral and calm again. Y'all, emotional intelligence is so important, and it seems like it's waning in this world. It seems like that's all we're driven to do is to respond emotionally. But learn how to remain calm, to stay stable, have that back voice back here encouraging you to remain calm, but this is going to take some practice because most of us were not taught this. Most of us were raised with people that didn't know how to remain calm. They were little volcanoes of emotions, and so we do tend to learn from who we were raised by. Focus on the facts, not feelings. Feelings are fleeting. I don't know if y'all have known this yet, but your feelings will lie to you, and they do not care about you. So focus on facts, not feelings, and then always maintain healthy boundaries. But a good leader should be able to look at a situation, not take sides. I hear that in a lot of the workplaces today, that we've got leaders that are taking sides, and it's very obvious we're taking sides. That is not a characteristic of a good leader. And so be able to look at the whole situation, remain neutral, and then bring people together, encourage the bringing together, and to be able to find that solution. That is an effective leader in our workplaces and in our home. So that ends our slides on on conflict. And what I want to do for the next few minutes while we're here is I just want to touch base on our EAP benefits. So, once again, you are allotted a certain amount of sessions a year. There are 3 they're confidential counseling sessions for you and your household dependents. Now, a lot of people forget that. So you get you utilize those sessions, and so do your household dependents. And you are allotted 3 a year, and that can be in person, that can be virtually, that can be through whatever platform you and the provider decide on. I have people that say, I would like to just call during lunch and take a 30-minute just vomiting session. I call it emotionally vomiting, and just get stuff off your chest. And then we work out the different 30-minute sessions that equal up to those 3 sessions. Usually they're an hour. And so whether it's on the phone, whether it's on some type of virtual platform, or it's in person, they're free, confidential counseling sessions. Now, I want to reiterate confidential. So many people don't utilize their benefits because they're afraid that, well, if I go see this provider, then my workplace is going to know. That is absolutely 1,000% wrong. Everything we do is confidential. As a provider, I am held to a very high standard. If I were to disclose anything that you tell me, then I potentially lose my license, and I potentially can go to jail. I'm not going to jail for anybody. I'm not jail material. And so I can assure you, nobody is going to disclose your information. And so you can set that aside and have peace knowing that this is between you and the provider. And the only information that your workplace gets is that people are utilizing the service. And they need to know that, because if people aren't utilizing the service, then we need to do more trainings like this to remind you that you have the service. Now, if you're somebody that says, I'm not ready to do any of that, then you see there we have a wonderful website that has a plethora of information that you can get all types of how to do this, 10 ways to do that, 5 ways to stop doing that. And so if you're just somebody that wants to start out off small, please utilize the website. And some of the things that we have people come in and deal with is work-life balance, stress and anxiety. Of course, there might be some marital issues. Whatever your issue is, we have a wonderful care coordinator with BHS. Yours is Miss Jasmine, and she is going to be at your fingertips through a phone call or the website, and she is going to be the person that you give her a little information. You don't have to spill everything to her, but you give her a little bit of information, and then she connects you with the appropriate provider. Now, if it is not between her work hours that you see there, we always have a human being answering the phone on weekdays, after hours, holidays. You will never get an automated service. And so we work our hardest to make this a very easy, streamlined process that you will always deal with a human being, and we want to get you connected as quickly as possible. So there's a very short turnaround, and you will work out with Jasmine with who that needs to be. And please feel free to say, Jasmine, this is the type of person I want to work with. I want it this and that, or not that. Please feel free to do that. And so Jasmine's there for you, and you just have to let her know what your needs are. Now, that QR code, if you just want to click that real quick, you can have everything at your access at your fingertips right there on your phone. You can make appointments. You see your employer ID there that gets you into the website. So everything is made very accessible and easy for you to be able to get what you need as quickly as possible. There's lots of ways that we communicate with all of you guys in the workplace. These are just a few of the things. You can ask for these. I'm sure in any of your HR departments they have those accessible. But again, one of the best tools is that app. Everything you need is right there at your fingertips. So what are our takeaways today? Well, first and foremost, our employee assistance program is offered for you and your family. There is no destruction or no shame in someone asking for help. We all need help from time to time. There's a lot of destruction when you don't ask for help, and it doesn't get better. It just snowballs. And so please encourage your family members, encourage your own self, your team members to reach out. We are waiting for you to help you and to become the best version of you. You have Jasmine that's there as your coordinator. She's always ready to get you connected. And then all of the different ways to assess your employee benefits are there. And then just overall, remind yourself, you have the key to your workplace being healthier, the key to your home life being healthier, and your community. You are, yes, a small entity, but everything has to start somewhere. And this is something that just exponentially grows because we tend to be contagious when we're in a more positive, healthy place. And have that mentality that people see you, that mindset that they say, what is going on with her? I want whatever she's doing. And people tend to gravitate to healthier, more positive people in the workplace. And so once again, you've got your 800 number there, the website, everything that you need right there, very easy at your fingertips. So that concludes our time here today. I believe if we have some time for questions, if nobody has any questions, that's certainly understandable.
I do.
Okay, we do have some questions. I love questions.
I think you may have mentioned it already, but can you request a specific counselor when speaking to Jasmine?
Now, when you say specific, are you saying a particular person that you know? If you know that they're in the network, yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm glad you asked that question too, because a lot of times we have people that already have established providers. And the question is, well, I have my provider, can they file claims with the EAP program? And the answer is yes, but there will be some paperwork. They will have to come into an agreement with your employee assistance program, but it's a very easy process to have maybe your established provider come on board and become a panelist or a provider with the program. But if you know someone's in the system, as long as they are willing to take new clients, yes, you can request that. And no matter what your request is, ask.
I would like to add to that. You can request a certain provider if they're already in there. And really the paperwork, if it's someone already in the network, you don't have to fill out the paperwork.
Okay.
You can do it over the phone.
Yes.
And also the EAP program is available for dependents
Yes.
of college age. They do not have to be on their Blue Cross dependent coverage.
Yes. Yes, that's something
And they
very
will
important.
also, if it's a different location, if you don't want to do it in Montgomery, if you want to go to Prattville, they will find someone in Prattville, or if you know of a provider in Prattville,
Yes.
you're welcome to see that person.
Excellent.
And one other question.
Yes.
So when you're calling Jasmine and setting up your appointment or whatever with your counselor, can you specifically say you want a provider that does virtual?
Yes.
Or is it just specifically up to that provider or that counselor to say whether he or she does virtual or just strictly in person or over the phone?
Yes, you can absolutely request that. We are made to put all of that information in our provider folders or information file, and so it has asked that provider, are you willing to do virtual? And so Jasmine will know if they are willing to do virtual sessions or not. So yes, absolutely ask those questions.
And the majority of them do virtual.
Absolutely.
They do virtual.
Yeah. Since COVID, I believe everybody is
Now,
on
Mr.
those platforms.
Which of these areas is your particular area? Like
With the list,
yes, like stress and anxiety, marital, family, like that's your personal, expertise.
So I work a lot with anxiety. That seems to be, especially since COVID, anxiety. I see more of my clients that are dealing with anxiety. A lot of marriage and family. I do a lot of marriage and families. But really, I have worked with that entire list. If you just want to know my favorites, I do like working with families, marriages, because it is so complex and it is such a vital part of our communities and workplaces staying healthy. That's my favorite, but I have, in 30 years, that whole list. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's all I have.
Well, this concludes our program for today. We want to thank Annalisa for being here, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.